Hi guys, welcome to Cupcakes and Protein Shakes. I'm your host, Savana Sharp. I have a very special guest. You might recognize her voice. She is the host of her own podcast, Confessions of a Bikini Pro, who I listen to. She does not know this, maybe she does, but she's one of the reasons why I started my own podcast. So I'm super excited to have her with her insight. This is Miss Celeste. How are you doing?
I'm great. That makes me so happy to hear, seriously. And obviously we got to meet in line at judges feedback for USA's, and that was awesome. So the fact that this is now, come to this is really cool, and I'm grateful to be here.
Thank you. I'm so excited. Yeah. So we briefly met. I guess we can talk about that to start. We were in line at USA's, and I obviously recognized you because I was like, oh my God, it's Celeste. I was like, I have to talk to her. Like, she's a celebrity. I have to talk to her.
Oh my God.
So we're standing in line getting feedback, and it's like, hey, I love you and your podcast so much. I'm fangirling. So it's great.
Thank you. No, that was awesome. I love how it just happened. What's the word? It aligned perfectly, right?
Yeah, it was pretty perfect. But I do want to talk something about your podcast and kind of specific to what happened. Like, when you started your podcast, did you ever think you were going to start a podcast, or what gave you the idea of like, hey, let me do this? I think this will be a really good idea.
Yeah, I always knew I would start a podcast, actually. Just from like a business perspective, I knew that it was a great platform, but I didn't know I'd ever run one hosting Bikini Pros. And it honestly just came because, when you're trying to force something in life, whether that's business, relationships, friendships, whatever, it never flows well. It just doesn't evolve the way you want it to. And so my mission in business is build more than just a body. And for so long I thought, I'll run a podcast around that. But one day I was on the treadmill and I was running, and I had not been, actively thinking I need to start a show. It just, it was something I knew I'd probably eventually do. And then I was like, I wonder if IFBB pros struggle with this. Like, I saw Oreos on the counter, and I think at that point I was actually about to go into my final show of that season. And I just started thinking about the pros, and I was like, why do we only see what's on Instagram? What else is happening in their life? I want to shed light on these girls. I also felt the bikini division didn't have enough credit for what it is. And sometimes the discussions around it aren't as respectful as I think the athletes within it can have. So that's why I was like, one day I just went on a hike with my mom literally after that. And I was like, I had this idea. And she's like, so when are you going to start it? And I was like, oh, that makes it real. And then I just literally the next day started messaging girls that I knew who were pros. And I was like, will you be part of my first 5 episodes? And thank God they were all on board. And then I just ran with it.
I absolutely love that so much because same thing, like I've experienced all the same things because I'm listening to all the podcasts from these pros of like, if you want to do it, believe in yourself and you will find a way. And that's so true. The idea sparks, and then suddenly, you're searching Google, you find a YouTube video, and then you start making these little steps towards this goal. And suddenly here we are, 2 podcast hosts. But I do want to talk about you too. Like, I really don't know a lot about your personal fitness journey because you get to talk so much about your people that are interviewing. So walk me through, let's go to your competition career and maybe even fitness in general. So like, when did you start fitness? Were you in sports growing up? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, I wasn't healthy and you're in a good sports growing up. Actually, I played volleyball for years. Like, started playing competitive in club at age 11. And before that, it was, the youth leagues. And it was like, if you're going to play club, you have to choose between soccer or volleyball. And my older sister played volleyball, so I chose volleyball. And then that actually evolved throughout middle school all the way through high school. And in high school, I was suffering a lot with depression and anxiety. And the anxiety actually was from the depression. And I turned to fitness as a way to cope with that. I was really struggling with self-loathe, negative body image, and there was also that competitive side of me that was like, if I'm already a good volleyball player without watching my nutrition and training outside of practice, imagine what I could accomplish if I did. So this was multifaceted for sure, but a lot of it was wanting confidence in myself and wanting to feel strong and feel, you know, like I was worthy of love, which was a whole other issue. But at the end of the day, I got into fitness and it evolved, unfortunately, from a really negative place. Like, I want to change my body. I don't like how I look. And I turned to disordered ways of achieving my fitness goals. But I didn't know that until I did my first bodybuilding competition in 2015, which I would say was really like the justification I used for the habits I already had. I was like, look, bodybuilding, like everything I no longer was saying yes to, like certain meals out or doing certain things with people or saying yes to the gym instead of everything else, I could now just say, oh, I'm in prep or, oh, I have a show. It became like a crutch. And after that show, I realized this is what was happening. I actually gained like 30 pounds in like 2 weeks, 3 weeks, I think it was. I'm honestly, it's so far away now. I almost feel like I don't even identify with that version of myself, but I knew I needed to change something and no longer use fitness as like a control of everything. And I acknowledged that I needed to grow in my business and in my personal life. And I was 18 and I invested in business mentors, personal development mentors. And that's when I really started to realize that fitness is about building more than just a body. And that's what really sparked my journey. So I took from 2015 to like 2017 off, just really focusing on my mission, and then started studying psychology. And after that, I knew that I could prove to myself, I developed a healthy relationship with myself, with food and my body. I should really take this to the stage again and prove that you can do bodybuilding and not blame it for your problems. I had blamed it for my problems. It wasn't the problem. It actually was my crutch, like I said. So went back to the stage because I love the lifestyle. I love it so much. And I had a wonderful season. 5 shows, killed it, top 5 in every single one except for the first one, I believe. Well, actually, no, I think I did. But it was great. It was an awesome season. Doesn't even matter placing. See, no one even remembers your placing. It's all about the experience. So then after that season, I really needed to focus on my inner health, my hormones, my period, my menstrual cycle, which was something I put on the back burner for so long. And I was so eager to get back on stage, but my coach was like, you can't do it until you get this back. So when you tell a competitor who doesn't have the patience yet and who's extremely urgent to get the next goal, that type of thing, they usually take it and they're like, I'm going to prove it, I'm going to do this. And I threw everything at the wall to get my period back without full consideration of potential consequences. I wasn't binging in a self-loathing way. I absolutely didn't gain a bunch of weight because I had an unhealthy relationship with food or my body. That was different. It was intentional. Everything I did was intentional, but it led to a 40-pound plus weight gain. However, I love myself through that whole process. I felt really good. I was still living the bodybuilding lifestyle, and I don't think that's always shared in the industry either. And that led me to USA's after 3 shows through COVID times. The cancellations really proved to me I could sustain it, I could maintain it, I could take the approach that was best for me. And I knew I wanted to step on a national stage to see just how I stacked up, what Sandy said, and a now extended improvement season with a better mindset and more experiences and more patience. So, and more peace with the process. So that's really like my journey.
Thank you for that. So I'm going to pick on some of those pieces and we're going to kind of highlight
Yes.
them. I do want to do a self-reflection moment because it seems like you are in a really, really great spot to handle an improvement season and you have a lot of wisdom to provide, maybe even your past self. So if you could go back before you started your fitness journey, what are you going to tell that younger version of you before you even step on stage, before you start bodybuilding? This is a sit down conversation with yourself. What would you say?
Oh my gosh, that's such a great question. I actually have heard you ask this before too, and I think that it's such a great moment. I would honestly tell myself to prioritize the self-love and the inner work above everything else because the rest will take care of itself. And I think when you love yourself, you're naturally more inspired to nourish your body, to move your body in the ways that feel best for you. And if I knew that then, so many habits and thoughts and behaviors that had manifested likely wouldn't have gotten to the point that they did.
Okay, I love that. Was there ever a version of you where you wouldn't have stepped on stage? Like, were you kind of debating it, or was it like a set in stone? Because it's kind of scary because I am not someone at the beginning of my fitness journey who had the confidence to be the type of person. I'm very introverted in my personal life. And I think you kind of have to, on stage, it's a lot different, but making that leap on stage, did you ever think that maybe it wasn't for you at a time?
Oh my God. The first time I stepped on stage, I like felt that rush everyone feels, and then I lost terribly and I was like, "Oh, maybe I'm not cut out for this, but when I first started, I wasn't afraid to step on stage. I wanted to do it to push my body and see what I could do. I think it was after that show where it was like, oh, bodybuilding ruined me and all that crap because I wasn't taking self-responsibility. But I do want to acknowledge the fact that you said you're introverted in your personal life and yet you're running this podcast and you're a great host. That's awesome.
Thank you. It's actually it's my outlet to like push myself too. So that's what I try to use my like social media platforms to like gain the confidence to do it in person, even though it's kind of a scarier thing because I feel more comfortable like knowing like there's a screen between us. So
Yeah.
I don't know. That's always how it's been. But as far as like you and your fitness journey, like, are you an extroverted person? Are you an introverted person? Like, do you love talking to people?
I love talking to people, but I don't go out of my way to do it usually. Like it's for the podcast, yes. For my clients, yes. If I'm at a show and there's someone there, even then I may not even say something unless I recognize them. Like
Okay.
I recognize you from Instagram, you said something to me that made sense. But like, yeah, I'm more introverted like you. And my podcast, I was like, well, this is really teaching me conversation skills and it's helped me so much. Like
Yeah.
I gotta say, I'm grateful I did it because I wasn't talking to anybody.
Yeah.
I just go to school online, I work online, promote online, everything's online.
Yeah.
And then I was like, this lets me actually have that interpersonal conversation.
And it can be scary, to talk about your fitness journey too, because it's so personal, and that not everyone is maybe okay with it. Was your family? I think you said your mom was like okay with it. Was anyone in your family maybe not supportive?
You know, I'm really grateful I had a lot of support the whole way. And in retrospect, I could see some of the concerns from people, but I now know that a lot of that was they were really just grieving the old version of me. Like they had to grieve that version of me that, would say yes to every meal out, or who wouldn't be going to the gym all the time, who wouldn't be talking about the show. And the next thing, like they had to grieve that version of me that existed before, but they never stopped loving and supporting me as who I am, because that didn't change. It just really evolved. So I'm super grateful for that. There was pushback, don't get too big, don't do steroids, don't do this, like all the stigma. But they know my heart and they knew me, and I made sure to reinforce boundaries that were important. And I think that helped with the support to come in as well.
I like that. And do you have a boyfriend?
I do.
Okay. So has he been with you through your transformation?
Yes.
And so he's been through everything.
Everything. He was at my first show 5 years ago.
Okay. So what does he think about it? Is he a bodybuilder himself?
He's not. I don't even know if I could do that whole thing. He was powerlifting before and mountain biking and all that. He's sitting right next to me. Can't hear me.
Okay.
But yeah, he's always been super supportive, and he's definitely seen me through all of it. And I think because I was living the lifestyle before I started bodybuilding, it wasn't this drastic change for him, where it was like, oh, we're not having date nights out, or as many, I should say. And, he did witness a lot of mental and inner transformation that I'm sure has, you know, I'm grateful he's so supportive and loving and has been with me through it all.
And do you think it's so? I have a non-competitor boyfriend as well, and he doesn't have social media. He doesn't believe in social media, and so we are literal polar opposites. And a lot of people don't understand. They're like, how does that work? And I'm like, he loved me before. He likes me in improvement season and when
Yeah.
friends. So I love
Oh
that
my
too.
God, yes. I showed my boyfriend my transformation picture the other day and he was like, whoa, he's like, you were thick.
Yes, right. You don't even realize it, and you look at it and you're like, oh, was I that thick? Yeah, I guess
Yeah.
I was. Okay.
He's like, he was like, you were still my baby though. And I was
Yeah.
like, oh, that's so sweet. And I think
Yeah.
it's crazy. Your boyfriend doesn't believe in social media, but obviously it is such a valuable platform and my boyfriend doesn't really use it. He goes on it, but he doesn't promote or post on it much himself.
Yeah. So your business has kind of evolved through social media. Would you say it's like how it kind of started?
Yeah, actually, I really just started it by posting my own fitness journey. I had no intentions of turning it into a business or anything like that. It was really just to share and be open. And I was doing personal training at the time too. So people from my high school started following me. I started giving out plans, doing the thing, you know?
Yeah.
And then it just evolved. My passion evolved, my journey evolved. So I evolved with it. And now, you know, it's turned into what it is, but my following has been completely organic. I've grown it from the ground up myself, really through sharing my own story and now more of my expertise on top of that. But yeah, all through business is done through social media, it seems.
It is. What do you have advice for young entrepreneurs for starting a business? Maybe something that you don't know, or you would have some advice because I'm almost there. I've started something, but it hasn't been officially. What advice do you say? Like, do it, don't do it, or what, maybe some cautions?
Do it, but do it with your future in mind.
Okay.
So if you are starting as an entrepreneur, you're starting as a business owner, you've got all these ideas, that's great. Ask yourself if it can scale. I wish I could go back in time and say, Celeste, is this scalable? Because I've had to now, obviously the systems will develop with you as well in business, but if what you're doing now isn't scalable, as in if you were to get 100 leads tomorrow, people who want to work with you tomorrow, and you couldn't manage it, something has to change, because otherwise you're closing yourself off to the results that you would like. So is it scalable? And then always have systems. Like, I swear my business has really blown up, one, because I have this amazing niche and I connect with them and love them so much. Like, I'm so passionate about it. It keeps me up at night, wakes me up in the morning type of a love. But it's important to have systems, like if you want to do all the things, you can't do it unless there's a process for everything. So definitely establish that.
Okay. I love that advice so much. I do want to talk about some guests on your show too. Do you have a favorite guest, like a favorite interview
I was
that
so
you?
afraid you'd ask this.
I know. I like to just kind of whatever I feel like I want to ask. I
I love
don't.
it.
So, who is your favorite pro, or maybe what was the favorite piece of advice if you can't think of a specific pro?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's, as you know, there's been so many amazing athletes, so much incredible advice for everything and anything. And it's hard for me to pick a favorite pro or favorite guest. And I'm not just saying that playing like, oh, favorite kid situation, but because I've really developed great friendships through it as well. My favorite guests are the ones though who come with value and who are vulnerable, the ones who I can really talk and vibe with, where it flows well. That's what I really like and thrive off of. Sometimes, it can't feel like you're pulling teeth or like you don't know where to take it next. And sometimes that's a reflection of me. But sometimes that is really hard. There are a few key standout guests that I've noticed people really take a liking to for sure. Some of those being Maya, then Jen Dory.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Laura Lee, she shared her story really vulnerably. And then there's a lot of, I don't know, if I were to go back, Phoebe Hagen, you know, everyone loved that episode too. There were tons of episodes that people still listen to now, and it'd be a disservice for me not to even name every single person after. I have great connections with like Kate Abate and Lauren Adams, and I'm just grateful for the friendships I've developed, and even some of them have been clients or members, and it's awesome. So yeah, I would say I don't have a favorite, but I know those are a lot of people's favorites.
So you know this one's coming. Do you have a least favorite? It's okay.
Least favorite, I have some that stand out in my mind. Yes. Would I ever reveal who? No way.
I hope you wouldn't. I asked you just to test you. I hope you don't.
Yeah, I would never. Because you know what? I like those episodes I value just as much as the others, as I'm sure you do too, where it's like, I still love this episode and love them and love this conversation. It's just, like I said, I like that flow.
Because you get value out of, you know, okay, well, maybe I won't ask that question next time, or maybe I won't have that guest on back. You know, you'd learn something out of each conversation.
Yes.
I do want to kind of start going back to your strengths, though, which is binge eating, post-show blues, and setting up yourself for success post-show. So what was like, knowing all these things were going to happen, you know, after your last show, which was only a few weeks ago, what were some things that you know that you had to have in place for yourself to be successful post-show?
Great question. Well, I love doing what I have my clients do as well. Like I definitely practice what I preach. So one thing for sure is towards the end of my prep, I was already setting intentions and standards for my improvement season. I actually even have them literally right here on my bulletin board. Yes, off-season standards, because if we don't have different standards and expectations, we're going to hold ourselves to the things that we did on prep. So that was one thing for sure. Another thing is being prepared for sabotage or being prepared for potential challenges. People who are prepared for challenges are more likely to be successful. It doesn't mean we focus on them so much to the point where they rule us and we manifest them, but it's enough to go, you know what, it's possible that I'll be extra hungry after my show. If that happens, here's my step-by-step process to get through it. Have I done this? Have I thought about this? Did I refer to my food and mood chart, or how hungry and full am I? Is this psychologically coming from a macro perspective, being lower and wishing I was having more? Like really investigating that. So preparing for potential sabotage. And then another thing is I no longer identify as a post-show binger. I didn't go into it going, I'm going to struggle and have all this, I'm going to want to binge on everything and eat everything in sight. I wasn't at all concerned about that. And I think that's important to be mindful of your identity. You know, going into an improvement season, if you identify as someone who's going to binge or who always has binged, and that is a sign that there's room for growth. There's room for improvement. So like I would have done for myself in the past, and like I'd recommend now, get help ahead of time, you know. But for me personally, it was setting standards and then being prepared for potential sabotage. And you know, I knew my body was going to change. Right. You see, you know, the lines are going to disappear a little bit slowly but surely, and sometimes they don't go so fast, sometimes they do. To me, all that mattered was if I upheld my standards and expectations, the results, again, they would take care of themselves. I don't have to stress about controlling the change, like how much weight I'm going to gain, or, you know, the measurement changes or all that, if I'm doing what I know needs to be done.
So how is your post show, just like in general? Are you doing okay? Because it's hard. I'm just asking because it's hard. Yeah. It's something that like a lot of people feel alone. When I first started, I didn't know that a lot of competitors struggle post show. I had no idea. I thought I was individual. I saw people on Instagram staying lean year round, and I saw pros looking like Olympians year round, because they do. And I was comparing myself constantly, like something is wrong with me. Like I just want to have, you know, it wasn't even like I was having a lot of food. It was just, you know, you're eating normal again. But because of how dieted down, it doesn't feel normal. And suddenly you start to self-attack and you're like, everything's wrong with me. I just am not shredded. I'm not lean. I'm a failure. When really, it's not the case at all. Like, you're healing and setting yourself up for success for the next show. I think a lot of people are getting caught up in the fact um, that they are so comfortable seeing themselves in the mirror every day. And then suddenly you're starting to add that body fat and it's just a different you. And you're like, it's an adjustment period. So that's something a lot of
Mhm.
newbies need to realize too, that I know a lot of competitors will say, oh my God, I want to compete. I want to compete. And you have to be mentally strong before you compete, and you have to be ready for it, because competing is hard. And I'm sure you can attest to how hard it does test you, but you have to be mentally ready to like take those steps.
And having that awareness of like stories you just shared or what could potentially happen is so
Yeah.
important, and not going in blindly thinking like this will solve all my problems, this will fix everything, because it absolutely won't. And when you had talked about, seeing your body change post show, and it can be challenging, and when we start to label ourselves as failures or fat, or like we've already ruined everything just because we're a little bloated and our goggles are making it seem like crazy, we actually then are more likely to self-sabotage, because now we go into that I've already ruined it mentality, or it's the all or nothing that competitors preach and thrive off of in prep. But as soon as it's the other way, it's suddenly like, I don't want anyone to see me. Well, you can't have it both ways.
Yeah.
And the psychological aspect behind this is we're being positively reinforced constantly for prep, for leanness, for those changes. One, we're putting it out there more probably as well, which then creates more opportunity for positive reinforcement. But on the other side of that, we're receiving it a lot. And so then if we haven't received that for gaining the little fat, or maybe having more flexibility in our diet, or we have preconceived beliefs that that's not as good, guess what? We're not going to feel good when it starts happening.
Yeah. So with keep on going on with that, let's say someone does, is in a really negative spot and now they're looking out for help. And what are some of the things that first that you would have them do? Like, it's a new competitor that maybe rebounded really hard, has gained some weight, and is coming to you for advice, like, Celeste, like, I need help. What do you start with them? Like, what are some questions or some different things you can have them do?
That's a great question. Well, first, I'd want to figure out like where is it really coming from? Is it coming from no longer having a goal in mind? Is it coming from seeing their body change? Like, what's really driving this sadness or this feeling of loss? And then I'd really want to investigate, is there a track they're trying to get back on, going back to like those standards and expectations? Because if there is, I try to remind them that track is broken. It clearly didn't work. It hasn't gotten you where you need to go. You need to step on a new track. So rather than trying to get back on the one that broke, we need to set up a new one, and really reminding girls that they can give themselves permission to do that. It is okay. It is healthy. It is safe, even if it looks different than other people or it looks different than what you expected. So I think from a general perspective, that's the first step I take. And then from a more personal perspective, it really comes down to their thoughts, their beliefs, their behaviors, their goals, their relationship with food, and their relationship with their body, and how all those things are interacting together to create the viewpoint that they currently have on life, on themselves, and on their next steps.
I think it's really hard for, I think, everyone once they don't have help, and just like knowing that you're out there, that you do offer services post show, is really important, because I didn't know there was someone to help you post show. I thought this was, well, my coach said I did this and I didn't do that. Now what? Like, I can't tell on
Mm-hmm.
myself. Who do I talk to? It's like, you don't want to have to admit, like, hey, I had a plan and I didn't follow it and I messed up. And here, what can we do? Because you don't want to go to your coach and say, coach, I know I'm paying you and I know I have these goals of being, overall winners and pros and all this stuff. And guess what? I keep eating and I can't stop it. it's hard. It's hard to admit to fault, especially after going from so extreme to on it 100% to not being able to be on it 1%. There's has to be like a happy in between. So
Yes.
for you, what do you think is the hardest part about being a bikini competitor?
Hmm. Such a thought-provoking question. The hardest part about being a bikini competitor, maybe like the the pressure that can come with it sometimes, you know, pressure to grow, pressure to like meet a certain time, which doesn't really exist, but there can sometimes it just feels like there's pressure. Um, like, oh, I want to grow, but I also can't grow too fast. I can't grow too slow. I can't do this, can't do that. Maybe it's the pressure, but it's hard for me to even say. I do love this sport, and I embrace a lot of those challenges too. And
Maybe let's do the best part. What is your favorite part about being a competitor?
oh, I love that it like represents or can represent like how we're showing up for ourselves. It's like an opportunity to love ourselves and to step into this version of us that challenges us, but also feels really, really rewarding and good. Like bodybuilding adds so much to life. And when you're not using it as a crutch or using it as an outlet or using it for anything like that, and it's really just a valuable thing that you enjoy, is so freeing. It teaches patience, teaches enjoyment of the process. It's such a learning experience, and I love that about it.
That's one of my favorite things too. It's just like that mental push, like when you don't think you can, and then suddenly you find something inside of yourself that says, "Oh, we actually can do this. We're able to. We can push we can push the extremes. We can keep going. We can do things we set our mind to." And I think this is such a mental sport. It's taught me everything. Any success that I've had in my life, I really do think it sparked from competing. And I really truly believe that it can help anyone, even if you're doing it for one, just that discipline that it takes, because, it's hard to stay motivated all the time. So I want to ask you, on days when it's really tough and hard, how do you stay motivated, or how do you hold yourself accountable to get your cardio done, to stay on your diet on really hard days?
Oh, I always ask myself, what happens if I don't? And that always brings me back to my values. I'm like, oh, if I don't do this, then I'm sacrificing my ability to have freedom, sacrificing my ability to have an impact, to have love. And when I connect my desires or my even those little things like doing the cardio, doing the workout, meal prepping, whatever it is, to my values, it always makes them mean so much more. So what happens if I don't do cardio? I'm going to probably feel a lot worse than if I just went and did it, or I'm going to have to make up for it later because I still have to get that cardio in, and that could take away from my business work, or that could remove my focus or my energy or mess with meal timing. So when I ask myself what happens if I don't, I get a lot of perspective.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I asked myself that too. I'm like, I tell myself on the cardio machine, I'm like, this is the difference between pro card and not. I was like, it's not going to happen on show day. It's going to happen like that one extra minute of cardio that you push. It's going to happen like at the beginning of your prep, that one choice that you made to not have a cheat meal instead. And so really understanding that as a competitor makes you realize, like, my actions now have consequences in the future, whether they're positive or negative. They have some type of, like, every action has a reaction in the future. So you're more I'm more conscious of like what I'm putting in my body today, because I know it's going to affect how I am tomorrow, and how I think and how I feel. So it's one of the things that I think, if you don't compete and you don't know what dieting is, you can't understand it. Like, you can't
Yes.
understand. Well, people will tell you, well, why don't you just have a bite? Why don't you have a bite of this apple? And they just really can't understand
It's
that
healthy. It's
it's
healthy.
it's it's not. But as far as your diet, do you do macros, or do you do like a meal plan?
I always did a meal plan, and then in the last year and a half, like ever since my last improvement season, I decided I'd follow a meal plan with the ability to swap certain things for macros. So I do a mixed method, I guess you could say. If I follow a meal plan my coach gives me, but if I want to have a Band Body instead, or if I want to make like rice instead of sweet potatoes or cereal or whatever, I'm going to do that. But that's because it allows me to really kind of follow like an intuitive way, or honor my cravings, honor my cues, honor what I'm really wanting satiation wise, or how I'm feeling. And I feel like it gives me a deeper connection to my body. But if I did all macros, I don't want to be too numbers focused. I don't like the way that feels. I don't like having to plan all of that. I'd rather just know, these are the things that I like to fill my day with.
When you're on prep, are you someone who steps on the scale every single day? Was it once a week for you, or is it just throw it away and use pictures? What do you think the best guidance for that is?
Whenever my coach tells me to, I do it, which is every check-in. So usually on prep, that's once a week. Sometimes it's twice. Sometimes it ends up being daily towards the end. I had to work on my attachment to the scale and detaching from it really. And I was, sometimes it still comes up where I notice those old belief patterns, but I believe that if the scale's causing some sort of angst or concern, I wouldn't recommend just throwing it away and ignoring the problem. Although that may be important for some people, I think it's better to face like, why am I feeling this way about the scale, right? Like, what is it that I'm experiencing when I step on the scale? So I'm an advocate for weighing yourself, but from a data perspective, not from a, this is either a representation that I'm really good and on point, or I'm not. And that's my perspective.
Okay. I know that you talked about menstrual cycles, because I want to talk about that too, and like healing your body. And sometimes in prep, like athletes in general, because we're training at such a high level, our body loses our cycles. I know that this was the first year that I've actually ever lost my cycle, and I was scared at first. I go, oh crap, am I pregnant? I don't know what this means. But it's hard to get it back to, for long periods of time, not having a cycle isn't necessarily healthy for our bodies. So how have you worked on like getting that back? I know you talked about that briefly towards the beginning of your journey.
Yeah, no, that was rough for me. That
Mm-hmm.
happened like for a long time. And I think it was just like the chronic dieting, losing a lot of body fat, being a low body fat, all of that. Um, so I referred to the Period Repair Manual by Dr. Laura Briden, and I used a lot of her recommendations. At first, I cut out all cardio, increased food dramatically. Like I did everything I could to get into a more relaxed, less stress, less chronic state. That didn't really do, I mean, it did the trick, it came, but it still took a while. And I feel now, I lost my period again, which sucked. Like at first that really sucked, because I was like, are you kidding me? I worked so hard. Like that was so emotional for me, because going to the doctor, they just tell you, oh, it's bodybuilding. You gotta like, well, either don't do it or it's normal or whatever. It's like, this can't be normal. And then it's like, oh, we'll just go on birth control. Well, I don't really want this to be a synthetic fix. I'd rather
Yeah.
fix this, right? And then I did end up taking progesterone at first for like 10 days as they prescribed it. Some don't prescribe it that way. Obviously, talk to a professional. But then when I did that, I got it back the very first time, years and years ago, before even, like my run of shows in 2017, 2018. And then in 2019, when I went on my own journey to get it back, I followed Dr. Laura Briden stuff. And then I don't know, like now that I lost it again, I'm just taking it slow. I have a feeling it'll come back, because I had it for a while in that improvement season. But instead of throwing everything at the wall this time and dishonoring my body in some ways, I'm just going to let my body do, what is best for her. Because extreme fat gain and loss of cardio is also not mentally healthy. From a cardio perspective, I really enjoy it. And then from like the nutrition perspective, to put on a lot of fat really fast is also stressful on the body. So now that I've developed patience, I recognize, okay, this is part of this process, and I have to acknowledge that it's important.
Do you plan on competing forever?
Oh yeah. I can't see myself stopping anytime soon. I'm in this for the long haul. Like, I don't know. I don't know. Like, I don't know if I'm gonna do what I'm like. I don't know. I don't say I would stop. I would do this forever. Like, I want to have kids
95,
and
like 95, we're on stage. We're in like 95 and up age group, getting overalls
yes.
every time. Okay.
Yes. Who
Okay.
says you can't? Now, by then I'll be eating only chocolate and stuff all the time, every day. Be like, doesn't matter. Let me have my grandkids. Let me
Yeah.
play at the park. But no, I would still live this lifestyle, 100%.
And then leading on to that too, what is your goals in this sport?
Goal number one is to grow.
Okay.
I need to. Goal number two is to then actually, compete at the national level again and win my pro card. And then from there, compete as a pro and work my way up the ranks to, the most prestigious stages, the Arnold, the Olympia. And I would be so honored to one day have the title of any of those. I mean, that would be incredible to represent mental health, to represent living a life that you feel fulfilled by and building more than just a body. That's really the goal is, and competing is not so much just the next win, but it's like, what can I represent in the sport and who can I support along the way in that. So that's really what drives me.
Okay. I like that a lot. Um,
Thanks.
but let's talk about some fun things too.
I'm
So
having fun.
I'm having fun too. So if you were gonna win the lottery, let's say tomorrow, what does your day look like the next day?
Oh my god, that's so funny. Like instantly, I'm
Like
like,
instantly, what is your first purchases, and then where your mindset's at? What are you doing in your free time now? Money's not an option for you anymore. You're good.
oh my god. Well, I'd still do what I do, but I would just do it completely for free.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would run more live events and travel a bunch. But if I wanted tomorrow, like I'd want to make sure all the people I love were set up and they were taken care of first because I know I can do I'm gonna do what I love to do anyway, and I'm making money doing it, and so I could provide for myself. So I want to make sure everyone's set up and good. Travel, see the world, uh, give a lot of gifts to people. I love doing that, and then uh yeah, maybe get my own podcast studio and do things in person and fly people out to actually do the interviews in person as well.
Oh, that sounds fun. I forgot to ask you the most
Yeah.
important question. Are you team cupcake? Are you team protein shake?
How can you choose? Um, Team Cupcake.
Okay. And then is there a specific flavor or like your dream cupcake? Please describe in detail what that is.
Ooh, ooh. Yeah, there's one cookie I instantly thought of that I remember having at like for one of my birthdays, which was so weird because I'm not gluten free, but this was like a gluten free cupcake, and it was like caramel, banana, like pecans, like the works, and it was like super moist and buttercream frosting. So I love a buttercream frosting. Um, Anything that's like I kind of like the warm, rich flavors. Uh,
Yes.
yeah,
I
that's
love
that's where
that.
I'm at. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then post show, do you have like a go-to like cheat meal or like something that you're looking forward to?
Rarely. I used to like stock everything up. Now, no, there's not. I don't even have a list on my phone of the things that, because I don't obsess over or fixate on anymore. I don't allow myself to do that. So whatever my body's feeling like I had Chipotle after the last show, but then the next morning I was like, I want this cookie. I had that cookie. And then there's sometimes where it's like, I really want this like bowl of oats. So whatever I'm feeling, I'll have.
Yeah, because I swear to you, nothing sounded better than a bowl of oatmeal. I was like,
Yes.
just give me oatmeal and like a jug of water, and I'm ready for bed.
Exactly.
And let's do another fun question because I think these are fun. So, if you were to create your own country and you had to create the first law, and everyone had to follow this law, whatever it is, what would that law be?
Oh my gosh. That's a really Do you have an answer to that?
Oh no, these are just ones that I like to stump you guys with. They're fun.
Oh my God, yes.
Maybe it's
This
health and fitness
stumps.
related, like someone you have to like do these things, or maybe it's a mental health like thing.
Okay, yeah. So I think from that perspective, probably the first law would be inner work first.
Okay.
Like before you can start a diet, before you can start training, like even when you come in the gym or every time before you do a check-in, there's got to be something inner work related that happens first. That could be the law for sure.
Okay. And let's do a few more of these because I think they're fun, and then we'll get back to like the meat of the episode. But okay, so desert island, you have 3 items. What are you bringing and why?
Mm. Am I like deserted or am I having a vacation?
No, it's just you, but maybe it's a nice island, so there's like maybe like a little cabana or something.
For sure. Okay, I would bring fuzzy socks. I know it's an island, it's hot, but I love anything like
I
that.
do too.
um, my journal, for sure, my journal, and then my phone.
Your phone, okay.
Yes.
And where does your mind go most of the day? What do you think about?
Oh my God. I'm always thinking about like food, relationship, body image, like psychology. And I'm not even just saying that. That's genuinely what I'm thinking about. Sometimes I wish I wasn't thinking about that all the time, but it's constantly like content and, oh, this client mentioned this. I want to think about that more, like this research thing or school. Like my mind's always on that stuff.
How do you balance everything? Because it sounds like you're competing, you're a student, you're a business owner, you're a podcast host, you're doing content, you're doing everything. How do you balance everything?
With passion and love, but mostly with systems. Like I have systems in place. I have people who understand that I'm really immersed into everything I do. I write everything down, plan it all out. Like if I have schoolwork, like before that term starts, I'm writing every assignment that's due, when it's due, so I can check it off the list as I go. And then in my planner, I'm writing school assignment this, or in my business, it's not just, oh, as a client comes, I just kind of throw something together. No, it's like I know exactly what the first message, second message, third step, fourth, fifth, sixth, like I know from start to finish what they're doing. So yeah, systems keep me going, and balancing it all is like honestly because I love it so much, like, and I'm so eager to do it and excited. It doesn't feel like heavy work, which I think really helps.
Hi guys, I just want to let you know that our Zoom connection went down due to a thunderstorm, and I do live in the middle of the country, so I didn't have internet. We were able to finish our podcast on the phone, but this next part of the audio is a little bit rocky, so you might brace yourselves. And I wanted to let you guys know that I did open up a merch store online. You can get to it from my Instagram bio for the merch store for cupcakes and protein shakes. We do have a bunch of sweatshirts, t-shirts. I have cute shirts, they say cupcakes and protein shakes. I have improvement season hoodies. I also have Be Strong for Those Who Can't Be, which is an advocate for suicide sweatshirts. And then I have future IFBB Pro mugs that you can order temporarily. So these short campaigns will be only up for limited time only. Thanks so much, and enjoy the rest of this podcast.
Step. But if you're listening to this and you're maybe like, maybe I want to do a fitness journey, this is probably what you needed to do it. Just do it. Like, we both weren't really sure where it was going to take us, and now we're here, and I feel like we're mentally in a lot better spot because of it. It might have not been that way all the time, but because we did experience, post-show blues, and because we might have rebounded and hard like that, like, it helped us get better, and we almost had to experience it to figure out how to get better, if that makes sense.
And now we can even say, don't make the same mistakes we did.
Yeah.
Be proactive.
Yeah. So was there any other mistakes that you haven't mentioned before that you made early in bodybuilding that you would recommend don't do this?
I wouldn't say that there is any particular mistake I made that I haven't shared.
Okay. And then what do you do outside of fitness for fun?
I go on hikes and I watch movies. That pretty much sums it up. I don't know. I talk to friends on the phone, or I color and draw. I like to do that too. Listen to music. It's fun for me.
Okay. And then where do you see the bikini division going in this next year? Did you watch the Olympia?
Oh yes.
Okay. Let's just like gossip for a minute. Are we happy with the new winner?
You know what? If you asked me it last year and it was Janet, I probably would have said, no, I don't think that she's the right fit. Yeah. Now, I think she represents it well. Only because the drastic changes she made, like when you just compare it, she's super improved. So I think she really deserved it. I really wanted to see Jen Dory win. I did
too. I really wanted her to win.
Yeah, I think she'll have her time, and the Arnold's coming, but so I do think the direction is going that way. It's clear that they want that feminine look, that very like posing. Yeah. It's clear they want the pose and the details to matter. They don't want the imbalance or that almost like pushing the boundary, which Issa is starting to do, and she also is beautiful representation last year. She didn't bring it this year. It just goes to show that unless you're bringing it on the day you step on stage, you can't expect to win just because you won, one time before.
Yeah, I agree too. Like, I'm very, very, very happy with where like the division is going and like the standard, and I love that it can change, and it just goes to show competitors that the division is always changing, and that means that maybe your physique isn't winning this year, but it might mean you have a better chance next year or maybe 5 years, because like you just can never count yourself out, and placing is subjective. So I don't ever want someone to think, when they look at themselves as a non-competitor, thinking like, I can never do this or I'll never look like that. No one wants you to look like that. They just want you to be your best version of yourself,
I love that. So true.
So I'm excited to see where bikini goes this year. And what about wellness?
Oh, I mean, wellness is awesome to watch. Even you saw backstage, when they were there before. I was blown away. I was like, these guys are like big.
Yes.
Like, not just like, I don't know. Like, obviously they look big in the photos too, but they are genuinely so muscular. And I'm like, don't rush. Like, anyone who's thinking about going and switching to wellness, I just like look at them. I'm like, go to a show, stand next to one of the girls, because like, even now, just from the bikini division level, they're demanding a lot more muscle density, muscle roundness, muscle development. So be willing to take the time really is what is so apparent. But I think the wellness division is quite beautiful. I would never compete in it myself, but it's beautiful.
Yeah, I do too. I am envious of how much size they have. I'm like, I'm just trying to have half the size of you. Can you just give me one of your legs and I'll be good?
If I train like a wellness competitor, will I look like the bikini competitor?
Yes, that I'm supposed to be. Yes, I think that's a great idea. Just a few other things for you before we wrap up our hour here. Where are you going to take the podcast next? I think we talked about maybe in studio. We talked about maybe doing in person. Are you going to do wellness competitors? I know it's Confessions of a Bikini Pro, but would you take wellness pros on?
It's so funny, like, people have asked me this, like, oh, why don't you interview, like, NPC competitors? Why don't you do, like, wellness or, figure, physique, whatever? And I don't know. So, like I said in the beginning, so much of it was driven on shining light on the bikini competitors in that division. I think, I'm grateful my podcast sparked inspiration and spark more light in that, and people are, adding even more value to the industry. I'll let someone else do it,
Yeah.
I would love to do feature weeks, like I've done like the coaches series and the coaches week. I plan to do those, so I would bring on, for sure, like, I would want to bring on wellness competitors. I want to even do potentially, like, actually this is something I'm thinking about reaching out now, but I know it could be sensitive. Like, I'd love to bring on, like, fit couples for Valentine's features and,
cool.
Yeah, like, that kind of stuff interests me, but changing up the whole show, I don't know. But in studio would be awesome, or even just traveling to some of the shows and getting some quick clips. But this year, and I guess more so right now, it's really just focused on even better promotion, even better shining light on these athletes who come on and letting it evolve from there.
And then do you have anything with your business, like anything planned for this year?
I'd love to run another live event if we're able to.
Yeah.
That is something I'd be really thrilled to do. I'm going to be relocating towards the end of the year as well to just evolve in my education too, because I'll be starting my internship. So with my evolution, my business evolves too. That's really it. But right now, business is focused on my clients. One of my big goals and changes this year is giving more to the people who are investing in me as well in my business and trusting me in their journey. So I've ordered welcome packets from my clients that I'm going to start sending out, and gifts. I've got tons of cards I was going through before we hopped on the call, because I would do that intermittently, but I want that to be something that becomes a non-negotiable. And then building my team. I hired an amazing VA this year who I love, and she's fantastic, and I can just see her taking on so much more. So those are some of those goals.
Will you ever become like a fitness coach, like coaching clients?
No, I can't see myself doing that. My heart is so much in the mindset, in the psychology, in the counseling aspect. I want to focus my energy on bridging that gap between mental health professionals and competitors. I used to do the fitness coaching. I started my degree in dietetics and clinical nutrition, and I shifted over to psychology because it just wasn't for me. So I'll leave that to the people who love it as much as I love the psychology of everything.
I like that. And then would you ever be a judge?
I could totally see myself evolving in the sport that way for sure.
Yeah.
I would definitely do that.
Yeah, I think that's a good, I think if you get to a certain point, if your retirement plan to stay into the business would be to keep, judging.
Yes, judge, support the athletes in some ways, host events, seminars, all that stuff, for sure.
And when do you see yourself, or when are we going to see you next on stage?
Oh, man, I recently decided it probably won't be till 2022.
Okay.
I did, you were there. I don't know if you heard, but Sandy told me not until the end of 2021, you need to just take time and grow. And so that feedback kind of told me, take time, I just can't rush this. And when you think about it, you come out of a show, right? And you have to recovery diet.
Yes.
And then after your recovery diet, you're really pushing weight, you're starting into your building season, your body's adapting, you're adapting with it, and that's when you're growing. And then you have your prep, that can be 12, 16, 24 weeks depending on the pace or where you're at body-wise, and I'm I need more time than that. It doesn't give me enough time to build. So plus with relocating, everything like that, I moved during this prep, so it's not I couldn't, but it's just I want to focus on building. So when I'm ready and I look like a pro, but I could potentially look like a pro up there, I should say, that's when I'll compete again.
I love it. So lastly, I want you to, anything the most in piece advice that you would give to a new person or new competitor in this sport, from you to them. What is that one thing that you want them to take away from this episode, or just in general, to just anything like that?
Yes. Well, definitely to prioritize your mental health and your mindset and sustainability in this. It's okay to be patient. It's okay to take your time. It's so much better to do it in the way that is sustainable and best for you, not best for someone else or what you've seen or what you think is, better because so-and-so said it was better, or so-and-so's coach is having them do that. Do what's best for you in the long run. It'll save you more time and energy.
All right. That gets to the end of our podcast. Celeste, thank you so much for coming on. Celeste can be found on Instagram at celestial_fit. And she also has a website that is www.celestial.fit. Fit. She helps competitors build more than just a body. So if you're interested in signing her up for coaching with her, she does have programs to help competitors with post-show blues, binge eating, and a lot of different food relationships as well. She does host her own podcast that is The Confessions of a Bikini Pro. You can find that on iTunes. So just make sure to tune in each week. She has a lot of great episodes. It was a pleasure to have you on, Celeste. I just wanted to thank all of the competitors out there who listen to your show, and thank you for starting it. I know personally that show has touched my heart and helped inspire me and helped me in more ways than I knew a podcast could do. Celeste inspired me to start my own podcast. So I just wanted to thank Celeste so much for everything that she does for this sport in general and all the education and knowledge that she brings from sharing the different pro stories. So I want to thank Celeste so much for coming on the podcast, and all of you guys listening. Thanks so much for listening to this episode. It is also on YouTube, so you can subscribe to me at Savana Sharp Fitness. You can also follow me on Instagram at Savana Sharp Fitness as well. And podcast for me, I host new episodes every single Wednesday on iTunes, Spotify, and most other platforms. Thank you guys. I hope you're having a wonderful week. Next week, we will actually have Casey Samsel Torres is coming to the podcast. So I'm super excited. That episode, we're actually recording January 10th. So her episode will go live on the 20th of January. So if you have any questions when you're listening to this episode, please let me know and I will ask Casey. I hope you guys have a great week. And if you like cupcakes and you like protein shakes, this podcast, I hope, inspired you and gave you everything that you needed to have an amazing week. I love you guys, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.